Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Unique Items. Today we're going to be talking about the special Sorceress gloves, known as the Gloves of the Illuminator. The Gloves of the Illuminator are a special pair of gloves that can drop only for Sorceress in World Tier 3 and World Tier 4, and they can drop as Sacred and Ancestral versions. These particular gloves have a suite of special abilities on them, and we're going to go over them together and talk about them today. First off, we have the 5% critical strike chance, which does roll from 3 to 8%, and I do believe if you upgrade this 5 times, you should be able to get it up to as high as 12%, which is very nice. It's actually pretty common for people to roll crit on their gloves, so it's nice that these actually have 12% crit on them, although, you have to find a pair with 12% crit. We also have 5.6% fireball attack speed of 4.2 to 7%, which is an interesting modifier. Why not just attack speed? Why fireball attack speed? I guess I didn't want them to be too good since they have crit and attack speed on them, so they were like, let's make it fireball attack speed. That one also can go up a lot higher than 7% if you upgrade them. In fact, let's go ahead and upgrade them right now, because why not? That way we can get an idea of the full power of the abilities, not just simply the unupgraded versions. Shwing! I hate that I can't teleport in town. They take away my ability to teleport in town, and they're rude, and I don't like it. Boop, boop. Do, 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 do. So, here we go. Now we have our Gloves of the Illuminator Tier 5. So, as you can see, 4.5 to 12% crit, 6.3 to 10.5% fireball attack speed, and then we have our lucky hit chance of up to 21% max, and mine's at 15.7, so 10.5 to 21% lucky hit chance. It's not bad. We also have 3 ranks of fireball. Now, this can roll from 2 to 3, and if you have a 3, it will upgrade to a 4, which makes it surprisingly good. And I'd like to touch on that for a second here. So normally when you make yourself a pair of gloves, like for instance I have for my charged bolt sorceress, what I'm looking for is critical strike chance, right? I'm also looking for main skill bonus. So my main skill for this particular character is charged bolts. And then on top of that, look at that, I also have attack speed. If you look at these gloves from that perspective, they actually have literally 3 of the stats that you would probably choose for a pair of gloves anyway. And a lot of characters that are building Lucky Hit will also choose the Lucky Hit too. So they're actually set up very well as a pair of gloves. The special effect on these is Fireball now bounces as it travels, exploding each time it hits the ground, but its explosion deals less damage, and that does vary between 75 to 65% less. 65, of course, being the better number that you want to shoot for. Now, this does actually stack with another unique item, which I've already covered in a previous video, called the Staff of Endless Rage. I don't really want to cover this again, but since it does stack with these gloves, I'm going to put this one on, and we're going to have fun with it. And if you haven't taken a look at this one, basically what it does is it makes it so that every third cast of Fireball launches 2 additional projectiles, which is pretty cool. So if we go outside of town here real quick, and I shoot off a couple attacks, what you'll see is that the fireballs bounce. So as you can see, they're actually bouncing. Boing, 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 boing. Boing, 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 boing. They actually do multiple explosions, which is really fun. And if you're using the Staff of Endless Rage with it, you get this really nice triple fireball. Now, the really cool thing about this is you can shotgun really nicely with these. So I think Fireball is kind of meant to be shotgunned, just in general. But when you have 3 that's coming out, and they're bouncing and doing a pretty decent amount of damage, you can definitely get a lot more interesting effect out of them. Of course, we got a DR boy right here. And I'm not set up for fire at all.
I'm out of mana.
Hey, and then they die because they explode. Not bad. So Fireball also has an enchantment, which is rather interesting. It basically allows you to set it up so that when a monster dies, when you kill an enemy, they explode in a fireball for 60% of its damage. So in other words, if you set this up correctly, you've got a fireball, right? That's bouncing multiple times, doing multiple explosions. You've got Staff of Endless Rage, which can potentially make it so that you have 3 fireballs coming out. If anything dies from your fireballs, you can also set it up so that, of course, with the enchantment, they also have a explosion that they dish out more explosion damage. It's almost like exponential damage at that point. And once you get it up and running and you have enough damage output from how it works, you could get some pretty nice effects out of this. There's downsides to this, though, and the unfortunate downsides are basically this. You gotta kind of have to use the Staff of Endless Rage if you want to get those 3 fireballs. And you're tied to a unique item, a unique weapon, which does require you to find this particular staff in a high item power so that you're not gimped on damage. In the meantime, you'd probably be better off using a different staff that has higher item power until you can find the Staff of Endless Rage with like an 800 to 820 roll. On top of this, you're tied to Fireball. Now, Fireball is kind of an odd ability that does have a couple paths. You can dish out damage directly to the monsters. Like, for instance, you can dish out the critical strike damage. Each enemy hit increases this bonus by 5%, up to 25%. So it's more or less a fireball that's strictly going to be a damage fireball. Then there's an entirely different path that you can take. This is where Fireball deals 10% of the burning damage that you've applied to enemies as additional direct damage, which is actually kind of interesting. So the fire character in particular has a lot of ways to add additional fire damage bonuses. The combustion capstone here, as you can see, says your burning effects deal 2% increased damage per unique source of burning that you have applied to an enemy, and if the enemy is burning from 2 or more sources, this bonus is doubled, right? So basically, you can have multiple versions, like effects of burning on a target. You can have like the firewall burning on a target, the meteor burning on a target. You can have the hydras burning on a target, which I believe is right here. You can burn them with Fireball. You can obviously burn them with the Firebolt ability. There's also an enchantment effect where Firebolt just randomly apply burning effects as well. And by the time you're done, you'll have tons of unique burning effects on the targets to the point where Fireball is going to be dishing out a lot more damage because it's going to take 10% of the burning damage and it's just going to apply it as additional direct damage, which could be another way that you can stack on additional burning damage into this weird build. It's really silly to see the 3. Now, the 3 can be pre-buffed, so you notice down here that I have 2 currently at the moment, which means that my next attack will be the 3. So the next time I roll into battle, I'll start out with a 3, which is definitely interesting. Let me just go ahead and find a little group of monsters here. And we start out with a 3. I really wish I had a full fire setup Sorceress to actually show you how this ability works, but I'm currently just not set up, unfortunately, for this. You know what I am set up for? I'm set up for Charged Bolt and things like this. That wasn't even Charged Bolt, that was Arc Lash. All in all, I'm actually kind of impressed with the Gloves of the Illuminator. As a unique item, I think it's very well crafted because it has what you would probably want to roll on something like this anyway. It just makes it an optimal item for a Fireball Sorceress because it has the ranks of Fireball, which you were going to look for on a pair of gloves anyway. It has the crit, which you're going to look for on the gloves anyway. It has the attack speed, which you might look for on the gloves. You may or may not, depending on how your build works. And it also has the lucky hit, which again is something that a lot of the times you end up looking for as a lucky hit based character. So it has a lot of the modifiers that you would normally seek on a pair of gloves, which is actually kind of crazy because a lot of the times when you look at items, they just don't seem to, the unique items don't seem to have anything that you would actually want on them. You're like, what? Did I see shrine buff duration? Like, what? You just gotta hang your head in shame. But not these. These are actually pretty nice. There is a flavor text on these, and they do say, after Inarius returned to Sanctuary, he sought a way back to the high heavens. His first step was to reignite the religion he had abandoned a millennia before, the Cathedral of Light. One day I want to actually try and theory craft a full build around a Fireball Sorceress. This Sorceress is not that Sorceress. The Sorceress is not a Fireball Sorceress. And there is nothing that I'm going to be able to do to make this into a Fireball Sorceress. She is just way too set up for lightning. She's way too set up for everything else. But one day it might be fun to actually theory craft out a Staff of Endless Rage and Gloves of the Illuminator Sorceress, utilizing obviously a much better Staff of Endless Rage than this, and seeing how we can beef up Fireball to its utmost maximum. Some of the issues with Fireball, unfortunately, are just that it's a very high mana cost. And the very high mana cost on Fireball of 35, I think it is, or it used to be 40, but now it's 35 because they actually reduced it a little bit. Kind of was prohibitive. Thankfully, they reduced the mana cost on it recently, which is making it a little easier to spam. And you can utilize other things to, kind of like get rid of some of the mana cost requirements. Like if you tag it together with Firewall, you can utilize this one right here, which is 5% increased mana regeneration per active Firewall up to 25%, which is pretty useful. And there's a couple other ways that you can stack on additional regeneration or mana consumption to try and fuel the ever-burning rage of Fireball. And, once you guys figure that out, or once I, theory craft a build around it, I'm sure I'll find a way to make Fireball into the beastly skill that it probably should be. Anyway, as always, I've speaked long enough on the Gloves of the Illuminator, and as always, keep watching.